Welcome to the Prep Phase podcast, brought to you by Predator Gaming, with me, Ace of Pyrite, one of the Tier 1 Rainbow Six Siege EUL casters, and APAC North, of course. Let's not forget APAC North. And I'm joined by Hap, one of my colleagues and fellow casters. How are you doing today, Hap?
Doing very well. Excited for the major after we had such an exciting last playday for the European League. That was insane. One of the best stories I still think ever written.
Yeah, I think, as I said, it's, for my money, one of the best comebacks that we've seen. Yeah. Obviously, at the time of doing this, what happened was G2, after a terrible start, they lost a good few of the first games. They looked like they were out of things. 4% chance statistically of making it. They came into the final playday with about a 40% chance after a few more wins. And they made it. It was an unbelievable story. They beat Heroic 7-2, which left BDS needing a 7-0 win to be able to beat them out. And they couldn't do it. Team Secret ended up getting the win against BDS, and that sent G2 to the major. It's been an unbelievable turnaround.
It's definitely an amazing story. From how they went 0-3 to 1-4 to eventually winning everything after. Yeah, you don't see that often. An incredible turnaround from G2 to become one of the 16 teams, because it's not just G2 that will be going to the major. We have 15 other teams that will be making it.
We certainly do. The story has certainly revolved around G2 over the last few days. But, as you say, we're looking at a much broader picture now. And we have our groups, Hap, for the major. We're there. We're almost ready to go. We just need a couple of weeks and to get everybody into the venue and start playing, basically. But this podcast is going to focus on those groups. It's going to focus on the major, the stories of the teams getting there, the form coming in, and you and I, of course, are going to discuss along the way what we think is maybe going to happen, a few predictions, those sorts of things. So we'll get into things to begin with by having a look at our groups. I'll go through and read them out quickly so that everybody knows what they are, and then we'll break them down one at a time, and we'll just have a chat about them and how we think teams are going to face off against each other, the stories of the teams and how they've made it. So Group A, we have got Damwon, Kia, we've got Rogue, Ninjas in Pyjamas and Exet. Group B will be made up of FaZe Clan, Sonics, Sandbox Gaming and G2. Group C is Wolves, W7M, Oxygen and Gaming Gladiators. And then Group D, the last group, we've only got 4, is Astralis, Elevate, M&M and Furia. Now, there is some spice in every single group. We're going to get to that.
Yeah.
But let's kick off with Group A. What are your initial thoughts on Group A? So that's the Damwon Kia, Rogue, Ninjas in Pyjamas, and Exet.
Is this like the unbiased thoughts or the biased ones coming through?
Well, I mean, there is room on this podcast for a bit of both.
All right, you know what? I'll just go for personal preference first. Damwon Kia, I want to make them go through because
man after my own heart.
They deserve to be in a grand final at some point. They are an incredible team that one round away from breaking that APAC record. That's what we can say. And the other team I want to go through might have to do with my roots. Could be called Rogue.
Got to be Rogue
because there is Big ET in there.
You got Deepak.
Also Spoit.
Yeah. What a story that is.
Top-rated player. Yeah. Exactly. Comes in fresh for the European League. First stage, breaks 100, becomes a Centurion, and after that as well, top-rated player, which he basically held onto for half of the stage. So he's literally been an eye-opener for potentially many players, many young up-and-coming talents that will know it is possible if I just grind.
It is. That's one of the big stories with Rogue. As you say, they've been reasonably consistent through EUL. They've had a couple of dips in there. They didn't quite grab the top spot. They came through in second. Worth probably mentioning at this point as well, just briefly, how the groups were structured, how they were drawn. So basically, each group will have a first seed team, a second seed team, a third seed, and a fourth seed team. So it will consist of one of each of the positions. Those were based on the final league standings for the regional leagues. And also, there is only one one team per region allowed per group. So we can't have 2 NA teams together, can't have 3 LATAM teams all in the same group, for example. So in Group A, your first seed was Damwon Kia. We'll talk about the APAC seeding very briefly in a second. Your first seed was Damwon Kia, second seed was Rogue, third seed was NIP. They came third in the Copa Elite 6, and then XSET were your fourth seed. They were fourth in the NA region. So the seeding for the APAC region that I need to mention, the way that was done, because obviously we have APAC North and APAC South that play as independent leagues from each other. The top 2 teams from each, North and South, make it through to the major, and then they were seeded based on their overall points. So as first place, Damwon Kia, and as first place from South, Elevate, were put together. Damwon Kia had more overall points, so they become the number 1 seed, Elevate the number 2. And then for third and fourth, it was down to Sandbox Gaming and Gaming Gladiators, who were the second place teams in North and South, respectively. And again, Sandbox had more points than Gaming Gladiators, so they became third. Gaming Gladiators became fourth. So that's the way that works. But yeah, so Group A, I agree with you on the Damwon Kia. For me, I've been touting them to win the whole thing. Are they ready yet? At what point do you become ready? Like you say, they've been to the semi-final in Sweden. They ran FaZe all the way. And FaZe won the whole thing. They won Sweden, and they were the best team there for my money. They had the best performances, and Damwon Kia pushed them to the edge. Teams have said they don't like playing Damwon Kia. They're tough to play against. Their time has surely got to come.
If Damwon Kia would have won that last 1v1, though, if Rin would have won it against Souls,
simple as that.
I would put my money on it. They would have won the entire thing. Damwon Kia would have been a major champion at that point. But yeah, good point. When are you ready to win a major? I mean, we've had Liquid with Palu and Nesk around for ages.
Yep.
Like kings without the crown that they deserve to some extent. I would say they've been ready for many, many years right now. Same goes for BDS. We would have expected them to potentially even have won a 6 Invitational, but they haven't. So are you ever really ready is the question, right? It's like...
That's it. I think you're right there, Hap. I don't think a team ever is ready.
Yeah.
I think teams become sort of nearly ready, and then they've just got to turn up and do the last 10%, which is winning the whole thing. And I think Damwon Kia probably are ready, but there's 2 teams that we haven't mentioned too much in that group yet. Ninjas in Pyjamas. Let's talk about NIP to start with. I've got to be honest and say, with the performances that they've had so far this year and the performance that we saw from them at SI, I'm a little bit surprised to see them at the Berlin Major, and I think a lot of people will be.
They had a similar kind of story that G2 had, actually. At some point, they were down on 6% percentages, those usually brought to you by Sprabuni and Raf, to make it to the Copa Elite. And then eventually they managed to find themselves a way in, managed to go an incredible comeback, find themselves into that qualification spot, and then also go through the Copa Elite, find themselves in 3rd place. So it's an incredible turnaround from Ninjas in Pyjamas as well, but you cannot help but look at the entire year and just see that they have struggled, they have had issues, which makes you think like, okay, great, they made it here, but are they going to continue that form, which they've had through the Copa Elite? Or are we going to see what we've seen from NIP the rest of the year? Because don't forget, they are 6 Invitational champions. They've lifted the hammer before, but ever since, they've not been the same anymore.
They know what it's about. I think the thing with NIP is, obviously, they've had a roster change. We can't ignore that. Julio left at the end of Stage 1. An integral part of that roster for a number of years, all the way from Black Dragons when NIP took over the roster. He's been there basically throughout the project. He's won the Invitational. He's gone on to be the Furia coach. So he stepped away from playing himself. It sort of feels like maybe that roster change is starting to take effect. It's bedding in, and it seems to be having an impact.
I mean, you can look at it. Stage 1, they were 10th place, 1-0-2-6. So 1 overtime win, 2 overtime losses. The rest all lost. They didn't even get close to being able to qualify for Charlotte. And during Stage 2, they won 4 regulation wins, 1 overtime win, 1 overtime loss, and 3 losses. It's already way better. I mean, you are playing the same teams. Of course, roster changes kept into account. But that's a massive jump from 10th to 4th.
Yes, it is. It is. And, I mean, if we look at the performance of NIP in the Copa Elite 6 as well, which I think is important, they had a 2-0 win against W7M. a team being massively touted as a potential to win the whole thing. They had a 2-0 win against them. They ultimately lost to FaZe Clan in the upper bracket final. It was 2-1. It was a close game. And then W7M got their revenge in the lower bracket, and it was 2-0 to W7M. But NIP, for a team that have struggled so far, were very, very competitive with two teams there that we are talking about potentially being, and we'll get onto this a little bit later on. We've asked a few people from around the world, so make sure that you stick around for that. We've asked a few people from around the world who they think their top 8 will be, basically like a little power ranking thing. And FaZe, I'll not spoil it too much, but they're featuring. They're featuring quite heavily, FaZe. And, you know, this is a team that NIP have run the distance there, and all of a sudden it sort of seems like they're back.
They might be back, but we have to wait and see how to do internationally. It's always a bit different playing against teams in your own region that everybody knows through and through than it is to actually play against the likes of, for example, Damwon Kia, incredible players. Teams don't like playing against them. Rogue, I think we can start to say the same thing. They have that aggression, but also the passiveness at the same time. Like, they punch through and then they hold. They have an advantage. They don't throw that away very often, and those are difficult teams to play against. So NIP, they will have to prove themselves on the international stage before we can truly say, are they back?
They definitely do. We've got Xset in there rounding out the group, and they're certainly not ones to be overlooked. A few Brazilian players there. We know they're going to be familiar with the guys who play on NIP. They know exactly what to expect. I think the big question for me is, I'll look at this, and I think the seeding stands pretty well in this case. Damwon Kia and Rogue, for me, are the top 2 teams. There's no bias there based on me casting them. It's just that both of them, for me, are quite unpredictable. They can be aggressive. They can be very difficult to deal with. So I think, for my money, Damwon Kia and Rogue are probably looking good. But I think if anybody's going to cause an upset, I think it will be Xset. I think NIP are likely to be the ones to struggle out of this group. I wouldn't be too surprised if maybe Damwon Kia and Xset made it out.
Yeah, I think we can lock in Damwon Kia to make it out of group.
For me, yes.
For myself as well. They should be pretty safe. Of course, they are a very experienced team in the meantime. It's weird to say because they've been around for 2 years, but they've basically attended every major since but Charlotte. So it's like that's the only tournament they truly missed out from, except, of course, from their very first stage where they didn't qualify. But with that, they rose through the rankings really quickly in the overall world standings and showed the world that they are a team to be taken serious, especially with an organization like Damwon Kia behind them.
Absolutely. So if we move on to Group B. Group B, a lot of people, as I've said, there's a team in here that people are really favouring, and that's FaZe. We've got FaZe, we've got Sonics, we've got Sandbox, and we've got G2. We always like to talk about groups of death. I think I'd be willing to give this group that label. We've seen Sonics have big performances.
Yeah.
Super's announced his retirement after the major, so there's a lot for him to play for there. G2, sudden rise. Sandbox, a couple of roster changes and having a fantastic stage 2. I think this is one of the most difficult groups to call.
I agree with you. I think FaZe definitely will be able to make it through again, though, like in that first place. But after that, it could literally be a 3-way battle. Now, personally, I think it's either going to be G2 or Sonics because of the fact that Sandbox, whilst we have seen him quite often, of course, made some massive roster changes. But that also does mean that that roster is relatively untested internationally.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, Arakazi came in. Absolute star player. Good. He did so well. He went in from one of the lower rated teams up to the top 2 teams inside of APAC North, and he's been cleaning house in there. But now he's coming up against the best players in the world, not just APAC North. Literally the best of the best. Is it going to be able to hold up? Is the rest of Sandbox going to be able to hold up the same way that they did during APAC North? That is my big question. That's my big question mark. Because otherwise I will have Sonics or G2 become the second team that goes through.
Yeah, I think G2 is the difficult one to call because obviously we've seen a complete reversal of fortune for them in Stage 2. It's been, what you can only describe as a Cinderella story. They've come from a tough performance at the Charlotte Major, struggling at the beginning of the stage, really looking like they'd lost a lot of direction, and then all of a sudden they come out of nowhere with a bunch of wins in a row, and like we said, go from 4% chance to qualify to qualified. Unreal performance from them, and that's going to give them a lot of momentum and confidence, I think, going in, a lot of positivity. So you can't write that off, but I think there's still a lot of work to do within that team. As much as I'd love to see them do well, I think the Sonics are just more stable. They're more established, they're a very organised team, and they will come into this 100% prepared. They've done very well in NAL, and so for me, I'm leaning for a FaZe Sonics. I'm sticking with the seeding again almost in this one, and I think FaZe and Sonics are my favourite two out of this group.
I mean, I understand. I might rate Sonic slightly above G2, but at the same time, G2 is at home ground.
There's a lot of factors for G2.
They know exactly, like they're 300 meters away from the venue. They can sleep in their own beds. That is not something any team probably has ever experienced.
No, I don't.
In the history of Siege.
I don't think there is.
For a major or 6 invitational.
I don't think there is.
That might be the unforeseen buff down here we will be introducing during the Berlin Major. Just the comfort of your own bed, the comfort of your own food, the comfort of like just being in a known environment. Because that's something we always talk about on LAN. You're not playing on your own desk, right? You're not playing. You're playing in a different country. You might not even speak the language. It's especially true in Europe. Not so much if you're in NA, for example. But like G2 haven't been here basically for half a year or something like that. They know exactly what they're getting into. So, and I know it's all about the performance in the game eventually, but they might just get into it a little bit more relaxed that way. And, at this point, the major was a bonus. We said the same about Rogue during the last major of 2021. The major was a bonus back then because they had a terrible stage, needed to avoid relegations. And guess what? They made it to the semifinals and made SI as a result of it, right? So it's like if you go through these storylines, it's definitely possible G2 is just going to be causing the upset here and kick Sonics down back onto the plane.
I'm going to pin you down, Hap.
All right.
Are you putting G2 above Sonics? You think? I know.
You know what? I'll
go
for it. It's going to be FaZe and G2. I'm just going to say it. Yeah.
Big call coming in.
I'm calling it.
Big call, Hap. Big call. So if we look on towards Group C, then this is another one that I don't know. I look at this one. We've got basically in the group. We've got Wolves. We've got W7M. We've got Oxygen, and we've got Gaming Gladiators.
Yeah.
Now, Gaming Gladiators have had a reasonable performance in APAC South. They come through second. They were the lowest point-scoring team out of all of our APAC teams. So I think it's fair to say, and I don't mean any offence by this, but I would rank them towards the bottom end of the teams that have made it to the major, given, they've had a reasonable performance, but I don't think they're necessarily ready to step up, to the levels that they might need to have a deep run into the tournament. But that being said, I look at this group and I think there's opportunities here for all the teams. Wolves, W7M and Oxygen. So Wolves have had a checkered history when it comes to getting to LANs, when it comes to performance at LANs. It hasn't always been fantastic for them. They've been a lot better in Stage 2. They've been a lot more solid. So I do expect something good from them. But W7M, completely unproven on LAN. Obviously, there was issues at Charlotte with them not being able to play on site. So we don't really know too much what to expect from W7M. It's going to be a first time for everybody seeing them in that sort of environment. Oxygen, I honestly think Oxygen could top this group.
Yeah, I would go for Oxygen Wolves, actually. No offense to Gaming Gladiators again, but first time going to LAN, first time for them to qualify to a major. They're by far, out of the 4 APAC teams, the most inexperienced coming through. And as a result, I think that whilst they might be able to get a win or two here or there, I don't think they'll be able to make it out of groups eventually. A third place, not unlikely, could happen. All depends on how the rest of the group shapes up. But I just think Wolves, ever since they left Vitality, qualified to Charlotte, got picked up by Wolves, you see a steady increase in their performance. Like, the organization and its environment is so positive for the team that they have less stress, more fun, they just perform better and better and better, and nothing seems to be stopping them except for Team Secret. That was able to get a win out of it.
That was the one hiccup.
That was the one hiccup they had. But, if that's the only hiccup you will have throughout this season and through the major as well, you're going to be more than happy with that. Oxygen, very experienced players on there. Cannot deny that. As a result, I think that experience is going to be helping them across as well because they're playing against Gaming Gladiators, inexperienced, W7M, have played a major, but in unfortunate circumstances. So this will be their true major experience, their true first major experience coming through.
It's really interesting that you say that. Obviously, we've already touched on W7M, but of course, we've got to remember Oxygen in Europe haven't had the best track record.
Yeah, food is an issue apparently.
Well, not just the food. We know that there's been issues there, but
yeah.
They had COVID issues at a previous tournament where they couldn't have all the players playing on stage.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's happened twice to them potentially. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. I think they've had illness twice that's impacted them for events in Europe. So Oxygen, they're going to be hoping for a better travel to Europe. I think if they can get that and everybody's fitting well and they can just perform, I think we get a good performance out of Oxygen. I really do. I know they've come in here as the third seed, but NAL was super tight. It was super, super tight. It was coming down to the final play day to determine, those final placings. So for me, I agree with you, and I think Oxygen and Wolves, and I know that I'm a big fan of the Brazilian teams. Everybody knows that. I make no secret of it. And I know everybody's going to be going, Ace, what about W7M? But I just think it's the first real experience of it. And I can't bank on them just yet. If they get through, would I be surprised? Absolutely not.
No, but you also got to keep in mind jet lag.
There's a lot
They'll
of
be dealing
factors,
with that. Have never had to deal with that.
Look at Heroic in Charlotte.
Exactly.
That was their first LAN experience, and they really struggled with it because they had bad travel. They had a lot of issues. They weren't really comfortable, and it took its toll. And that could very easily happen here with W7M, and we might not get quite the same performance. Like you said earlier as well, they're playing against teams in their own region that they know fantastically well, and then all of a sudden they're coming up against Oxygen and Wolves and Gaming Gladiators who are playing completely different Siege to what they used to.
And it's by no means us saying they don't have what it takes.
Of course
because
they
do.
Everybody does.
But it's the experience factor that could be the difference maker here. I mean, we're playing with the 16 current best teams in the world right now. Everything needs to be right. You need to have the experience. You need to have the right travel going through. You need to have the right sleep. You need to have the comfortability. And if any of these factors is just off a little bit, it will impact your performance. And suddenly you might just drop out of what you otherwise could have expected to be a very solid top 2 performance. And yes, W7M, definitely think they can make it out of groups. They could be the ones that upset our predictions here of Oxygen and Wolves. I think if anybody does, it will be W7M that is going to be causing that upset.
I'd agree.
This is the most hard top 2 to call, in my opinion, because W7M is just out there.
Yeah, I think what I will say for W7M is I think the first game, and I don't know who they face yet, we don't know the individual matchups, but I think the first game will be extremely important for W7M. I think if they can get a win in that first game, then my predictions maybe go out of the window, and they can then carry some momentum. If they don't, then I think it could be a bit of a slippery slope for them where it becomes a little bit of a mental block. But moving on to Group D then, our final group and our final thoughts on these four. I think this group is actually going to be extremely competitive. We've got our number 1 seed in there from NA is Astralis. We all know about the quality of Astralis. And they've been rocketing to success over the last couple of stages, and that seems to be continuing. We've got Elevate as the number 2 seed coming out of APAC South. We've got M&M as our 3rd seed from EUL. Only just making it, which we'll talk about in a second. And we've got Furia coming out as what is becoming the consistent 4th seed out of Brazil. And we've got to remember, they've beaten teams like Liquid, MIBR, Team 1, all of them not present at the major, but Furia are still here. So we certainly can't write them off.
No, definitely not. But if I look at it, all right, I'm just going to start at the bottom there. M&M, I think they struggle too much to be making out of groups if they don't change anything in terms of their play style. They almost threw it away.
Yes.
It is like the last 2 play days, they played against Outsiders and Pones. Those are 2 of the most objectively, we have to say, like statistically easy games you will go up against. They struggled to get 6 rounds together. Eventually did it, so they did qualify, but otherwise they might have been out. Like, that would have been another opportunity for BDS to make it in that case, maybe even heroic in terms of round differential. So they are lucky they're here. They have to hope they don't get 10 a.m. games, because apparently those seem to be struggling with them. But I don't see them make it out of groups the way that they played during the last couple of games in EUL. I think I can be as honest as that.
I would be inclined to agree. Can they do it? Have they got the ability? Absolutely. They've got, Tyrant, Solotov, and Usus, we know, are a terrifying front line on their day. We had both Usus and Solotov fighting for 100 kills in the last game, and to have 2 players in your team who can hit 100 kills, Solotov didn't quite make it, but to have 2 players fighting for that accolade within one stage, that's wild. That's crazy to have 2 gunners of that level in one team. But I agree with you. I think they've had a negative performance at SI, a negative experience where they sort of struggled a little bit. I'm sure they took a lot from it, and I'm sure it was, being at the SI was the bonus. Really, it was a bit of a free tournament kind of thing for them. But I think there might be a little bit of stress coming in here, given the performances at the end of the stage to get there. But I guess Eminem's sort of one of those wait and see teams for me. But when I'm looking at this group and I'm thinking, can Eminem turn a result against Astralis? I don't really see that happening. I think, for me, Astralis are the easy top team in this group.
I agree. I mean, they got so close to be winning the Charlotte Major as well against Dark Zero. I was believing in it, and just the pure energy that's in that team. I mean, if like those of you who were at home, you won't know what you've missed there.
Yeah, it was electric.
They are electric. They cheer. They come up with these chants. They really rile up the public and make sure that everybody's feeling the energy they have as they go into that game. And they're not afraid to back up for a fight. They will get their hands dirty if they need to. And they got so close to winning it. But slightly more experienced Dark Zero able to edge them out on that last map as well.
So
I mean, it got all the way to the end. So I think if Astralis is definitely one of the top runners for this entire tournament, trying to go for another grand final appearance back-to-back and potentially even go for a win here. But if we talk about the second team to make it through, see, this is where it gets tricky, because Furia, yes, they always make it to the top 4, but at the same time, I'm not convinced too much that they will be able to beat Elevate. Elevate, who is, I'm not going to say funky, but I'm going to say funky. A funky team.
They've got Super Onigiri.
They got Super Onigiri. It's not quite like Cyclops, where they drop the diffuser, but they have these mad gunners. I mean, Onigiri able to drop or equal the kill record, 27 kills
using
in the best
8
of
different
1.
guns or something.
Using 8 different guns. The MK4. He's a beast on the DMR. If he has a DMR in his hands, you better run. You don't want to be facing him. It's like try and drone him out and get a grenade underneath his feet, because if he starts firing at you with a DMR on land, you can basically already check out check out at the hotel, get the plane tickets back, because that's not going to work. So for me, I think Astralis, Elevate to be making it out, Furia to be the upset in that group. But it's close one.
The thing is, we've got to look at Furia. And I'm a big Furia fan. I've loved Furia since they struggled in BR6 in 2020. They went into relegations. But, I backed them and I said, I think this team's doing the right things. It's got the right mentality. They brought fantasy in and, they turned a lot of things around, and they've had good performances, and they are consistently making majors. The one thing that I will say coming into this one, to get here, they didn't beat a single Brazilian team. So they got themselves to Copper Elite 6, and then they played against Team Cruelty. They lost. They beat Team Cruelty. They lost against FaZe Clan. They then beat 6 Karma and went through to then lose against W7M. So each time they came up against one of the Brazilian teams, they lost it. They were playing against Team Cruelty and 6 Karma, who were both Mexican teams. Not to say that the quality of Siege isn't, as high in Mexico and in Sudamericana, because there is some very good teams there, but there's less experience, and they haven't been able to get results against, what are the considered the top teams coming into the major. So for me, I think Furia are, whilst they're there, I feel like they are on a back foot a little bit in terms of results. So I think Astralis go. I don't think Furia make it out of that group. The one thing I will say for Furia is their mentality is they don't know when they're beaten. That's the one difficult thing. They can be 6-0 down, and to them, they're going to win 8-6. Like that's it. They don't know when they're beaten. But yeah, I think the real fight there comes between M&M and Elevate, and I honestly don't know who gets it. Like I've said, M&M need to show up with their best performances, which isn't what they've shown us at the end of the stage. But they could pinch it. I just don't know who to call in second there.
It's difficult. I definitely want to go for Elevate. Not only because I enjoy Super Onigiri on the stage, just with his little turtleneck. He's a great character. But also because I think that the raw skill on that team is insane.
Yes.
Basically the same as M&M. They have incredible raw skill. But I think that Elevate have a lot of experience in APAC South. They've had some experience internationally, just like M&M. But they seem like a bit more of a solid team once they really got going than what we've seen from M&M. Like, I don't want to say all year, but ever since their side's been a bit tricky, and we've seen some solid performances from them, but at the same time, it was nothing spectacular like we've seen from Wolves, like we've seen from Rogue, like we've seen from the last couple of days from G2. It was just enough, the entire stage.
I agree with that, and I think, obviously this isn't how it works, but just on performances towards the end of the stage, I would actually, and I'm sorry to say it, but I'd probably put M&M as the 4th European seed. I would actually put G2 above them. But, as it is, it's based on final league standings, and that's it. So G2 are the 4th seed. But for me, in terms of performance, I would rate G2 above M&M, given what we've seen at the end. The last question that I'm going to ask about Group D, the last point I'm going to make about Group D before we move on to our power rankings from around the world is we haven't yet seen Astralis travel.
That's true. That might
That's the last
them.
thing that I will say. We haven't seen how this team will react to that international travel. They're going to have, I think they're obviously based out in Vegas, which is West Coast. So it's going to be about a 12 or 13 hour flight to
13,
Berlin.
14 hours.
It's going to be a real good flight to Berlin. They're going to be 9 hours time difference. So there's going to be a lot of jet lag involved. There's going to be a lot of other things involved. And we haven't seen this team. And it's quite an inexperienced team in terms of, I won't say LAN play, because I understand they play on LAN every week. But what I mean by that is LAN events.
Like international LAN events.
International LAN events, which is a different thing to, I'm not talking about playing the LAN build of the game. I'm talking about the whole thing, staying in a hotel, your practice, your equipment, everything that goes along with it. We haven't seen them really do that too much yet. Not that much experience. So that's the little one asterisk that I think Astralis go through in top, but
it could
with a little asterisk next to it of just keep an eye on that.
No, I totally agree. It's always a big question that we have to ask with teams that haven't traveled before for their events.
Because let's hope the luggage doesn't go missing.
Yeah, just like Heroic, just magically disappearing on one of these airfields. I mean, I hear Europe is pretty bad throughout this season.
It's not great at the minute. I've been travelling quite a lot. And
I hope you guys have direct flights. Otherwise, it might go wrong.
Let's move on to our power rankings.
Yes.
I'll let you lead this a little bit because you've got them. So basically what we've done, to explain to everybody at home, we have approached a few people from within the Siege world, around the world, to get a feel of what the different regions are thinking about what are going to be the top 8 teams. That's what we're looking at. So we're looking at the quarterfinalists. Who's going to make it out of the groups, and then a rough order of where are they going to finish. So it'll give us an idea of who they think are going to be semi-finalists, who they think will get knocked out in the quarters. So we've got, and thank you very much everybody for getting involved in this. We've got Dev Marta, of course, one of our casters from the APAC region. Super knowledgeable, our ultra APAC brain. He is the seat, the source of all APAC knowledge, Dev Marta. You will have seen him as an analyst at many events as well. He's done a bit of both throughout the years. We have joining us and representing the LATAM region. Thank you very much for getting involved. We've got Ratalia, one of our Brazilian casters, who was kind enough to do the rankings for me last night. So thank you very much, Ratalia. And we've also got representing the NA region. We've got, you might have heard of him, we've got Pengu. He used to play a little bit of something. I don't know.
He's a caster
he casts now with Intero. but Pengu has done a breakdown for us as well. So you've got all those power rankings up. So
I do.
We'll have a little discussion. You run through them, you lead it, you run through them and read them out, and then when we're done, you and I are going to do our own.
Okay.
And that's what we'll finish off with.
Totally fine. I'm just going to ask you one question now. Who do I start off with?
Let's go for Dev Marta. Let's start in APAC. Let's
Okay.
go all the way down under.
So for Dev Marta, he's the first one to respond actually. So he's very
Doesn't
keen
surprise
on
me.
doing it.
Very organised. Very. I would
definitely.
imagine Dev Marta probably already had this list in a spreadsheet.
He saw it coming. He knew it was
I would
happening.
imagine he already had it in a spreadsheet.
I miss working with Dev. I really hope
I love
I
Dev.
get to see him again soon. It's like
Always very
we worked
happy.
with him during EUL at the start, of course. But
Always very happy.
either way, let's get going in it. I don't think you'll find much bias in this one for the APAC region. He starts off.
APAC 1 to 4.
Wait, do we go A to 1 or do we go 1 to 8? Should we go bottom up?
Let's go bottom up. So,
All right.
so the bottom 4 will be Dev's losing quarterfinalists. So 8 to 5 will be his losing quarterfinalists.
So he has Sonics, W7M, Damwon Kia, and Elevate.
Ooh, okay.
So he has both top-seeded APAC teams as losing
Going out in
quarterfinalists.
quarterfinals.
Yes.
Okay, an interesting one. I'm surprised that he's maybe not put Damwon Kia a little bit higher. I see them as like the real hope for APAC. But I don't know. Maybe he's got a different APAC team in his top 4.
Who
I think
knows?
the rest of that I could see being reasonably.
Yeah, I see it being
solid.
reasonably. So then for his losing semi-finalists,
Okay, 3rd and 4th place.
we have XZ and Wolves.
Ooh, okay. I'm surprised that he's got both of those teams so high as losing semi-finalists. I think that they're both absolutely capable of making it. Except I don't know if I would put that high.
No, that's the only one I'm looking at as well. It's like I don't know if if
be
I
a
look
big
at this
call.
list, the only one that stands out to me is Exit.
Yeah.
That's the only one that I'm personally surprised by. It's like okay, but who knows? Dev is a big brain. He's like
very
500
big
IQ, so he might have just blessed Exit going to the semifinals here. And then he has as the losing finalist Astralis. Back-to-back finals.
Okay. Going up against.
FaZe as the number 1 team.
I knew there was a lot of popularity with
There's
FaZe.
definitely going to be a lot of FaZe here today.
I knew there was a lot of popularity with FaZe. So FaZe and Astralis final, I can absolutely get behind. My question with Astralis, as I've said, is the travel issue, really. And I don't think it will be an issue, to be honest. But
Once you get out of groups, you'll probably be adjusted as well. It's like
yeah, I think
surviving
at that
groups.
point, yeah,
is
as
the
long
one
as you
point.
as long as they don't have any slip-ups in groups, I think they'll be absolutely fine. Okay, I can get behind that as a top 2, FaZe and Astralis. I can see that. There's a couple of questions I'd probably have along the way. I'm not sure about Elevate to get out of the group, and I'm not sure about Exet making it as far as semis. Obviously, Exet were a losing quarter-finalist in Charlotte, so they've done reasonably well before. They have got out of the groups. I'd maybe put them into that top 8, but I don't think I'd go as far as semi-finalists.
Okay, all right. Then we have 2 more options to go for. We have either Ratalia or Nicholas.
Well, let's hear from Ratalia. Let's see if there's any bias. Now, spoiler, I've already seen this list, and I can tell you, sorry to say it, Ratalia, there is a little bit of bias creeping into Ratalia's choices.
I'm just going to get the people, give them an opportunity here to guess how many Latam teams are in the top 8. Is it going to be
We'll just give you a second.
option A, 1, option B, 2, option 3,
Option C, 3.
3, yeah. Option D, 4, or maybe even 5 teams. Who knows? Maybe
He's included Exet.
maybe he's
They've got
included
some
Exet in
Brazilian
there.
players.
I don't know. Shall we get started?
Go on then. So our Brazilian caster, Ratalia, his
Yes.
losing quarterfinalists, position
Are-
8 up to 5.
Exet.
Okay, yeah.
one.
I can sort of get more on board with that. As I said with Deb Marters, I think
True.
Exet maybe go into a losing quarterfinalist.
He then has Furia. So we're like 1.5 BR teams already.
That's
spending 2.
we've only gone through 2. That's I would disagree with that. That's not one I would go for.
I don't think Furia will be making it out of groups either. But I mean, Ritalia will know them better than
He
we do.
certainly does,
So he
certainly
does cast them every single day, like we do for the APEC North and EU teams. Then G2.
Okay, I like that. A bit of love for EU. Thank you, Ratalia.
I mean, Alamau's in there.
You're just going to find every possible link that you can, aren't you?
I love your Ritalia. Don't worry. I was just making a bit of fun here. Don't worry. Wolves. as the next quarterfinalist.
Okay, so our 4 losing quarterfinalists would be 2 EU teams, a Brazilian and an NA team.
Yeah.
Okay. I think, given what we've seen from the EU teams versus the quality we've seen out of NA and LATAM recently, I could get on board with an argument that EU may struggle to get past the quarterfinals unless they really step it up.
I agree. Then for the losing semi-finalists, we have NIP.
Okay.
Who knows? It might be able to.
Can I guess who's coming next?
You can guess, yes. You've seen it already, but I don't know if you remember.
I don't quite. Is it W7M?
It is W7M, yes.
I thought it might be one of the Brazilian teams. So 3rd and 4th place would be W7M and NIP, both as losing semi-finalists. But that does leave a glaring hole as to who he's picked in his top 2, which I'm going to guess a phase up there.
There is a phase.
So
it's
that
just
means
wondering have they won or not.
So Ratalia thinks 3 out of 4 semi-finalists it's going to be stacked in the semis with LATAM again.
Yes.
I mean, we've seen it before. It wouldn't be the first time.
And
there is a lot of quality in those teams. My question mark there, as I think everybody's will be, is NIP.
Yeah, and Furia. I mean, just like not in the semis, but in like.
Yeah. Who's he got as his losing finalist?
Astralis.
Okay, Astralis very popular as a finalist. Yeah. Right, let's thank you, Ratalia, for that. A lot of Brazilian teams in there, but we'll give you that one. You obviously see them regionally. You know how good they are. Let's get through Nick's, and then we can quickly have a discussion about ours.
Now, I'm going to have to say something for Nick. He didn't know what to do for top 8. So he's like, I'll just give you who gets out of the group. So I just scrambled it for him. So he gave me top 1 and top 2 seeds. So on the back of that, I just sorted them down, and we'll be going from A to B to etc. It doesn't matter, really. Losing quarterfinalists, we have Elevate, W7M, Sonics, and NIP.
Okay. Again, NIP getting through the groups is an interesting one, definitely.
It is.
I'm not sold on that. I'm not sold
on that either, but I mean, there is a lot of experience. The one SI, small
they know what
change. Suddenly they went from 10 to 4th.
So how about Nick's top 4?
So then we have Astralis, Wolves, FaZe, and Rogue.
A lot of European presence again, and as you've said, Pengu maybe not intending for Europe to be like completely in the final there,
right?
But it's sort of 50-50. But there has been throughout all of them, there's been at least a reasonable presence for EU, which is probably a little bit of the surprise factor, really, if anything is. But okay, a lot of the teams shaking down to the same names, though. I will say.
I'm just surprised there's a lack of Damon Kia in these lists.
Yeah.
We've only seen it from Dev Marta, from James.
It's funny that you should say that, Han, because let's have a think about ours. We're going to have to rattle through these quite quickly because we are a little bit limited on time, but we'll get them done quite quickly. So for me, I think I'm going to go with... I'll work in the other way. I'm going to work in the reverse.
Okay.
My top 2, my finalist and my winner and my losing finalist are going to be Damwon Kia.
Winning?
FaZe.
Winning? Oh, okay. We're going to have that Sweden rematch. And this time Rin will be clutching it. That 1v1, map 5. Last overtime round. Okay, so Damwon Kia.
Imagine if that's what we got.
That'd be an amazing story. I mean, that would really shape up this major, especially G2 making it, NIP making it the ways they did. The rematch coming out for a first-time APAC finalist, potentially a winner.
I'd love it. That's just, I think it might be wishful thinking, but it might not be a million miles away. My 3rd and 4th, my losing semi-finalists, there might be a surprise in here for you.
Okay, let me see. So the 3rd, Tim's currently writing down Astralis, which not too big of a surprise. And then
I think Sonics get a semi-final. I do. I think the players are going to be playing for Super. I think they're going to be super prepared. And I think NA are very strong at the minute. So half of the semi-finalists being from NA, I think is a pretty reasonable shout.
So you don't think G2 will be making it out?
Not out of the quarters. However,
they can't get out of the quarters if you have FaZe and Sonics.
Exactly that. So I think in terms of my losing quarterfinalists...
Yeah. Okay. We have G2. Okay. Next one will be Elevate, Oxygen.
And then for my final one, I'm a little bit torn here. But
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Rogue. So we have some EU teams in here. No Wolves.
no Wolves.
But I have
don't
to-
know. Is that even possible, actually?
No, that's what I was saying, because we have
Oxg
Sonics
goes
and
out.
FaZe.
I'll swap Rogue for... Yeah, Sonics, FaZe.
That means G2 cannot be there, because they're all in the same group.
Yeah, that's very true. I didn't think about the groups. I'm going to leave it as is, because I want to let you do yours. But, okay. I'd maybe swap Rogue for Wolves. I see them as fairly interchangeable.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I'm
Give
going to
it
go
to us,
bottom up again.
Go for it. You go bottom up.
I'm going to go...
Losing quarterfinalists. Who've we got? So, Hap's first losing quarterfinalist, and Hap has thought more about the groups here. So, he's going to come in with Rogue as well to kick things off.
I have terrible handwriting, by the way.
It's quite all right.
Thank you.
And who else are you following on with for losing quarterfinalists? So, I mean, you've gone for Elevate as well down there. So, yeah, I could agree with that. Rogue and Elevate both getting out of groups and then losing quarterfinalists. Who else have we got?
This one might surprise you.
Okay. We've got NIP in sixth place. You think they're going to get out of the groups?
But now I'm starting to wonder if I actually thought about it properly. No, I haven't. I'm going to get the same problem as you are. So at some point, rather sooner.
But it just means that your winner can't come out of Group A now.
The winner won't, but I mean, there could be another semi-final.
Well, they can't either.
No, I know, but I made a mistake.
We really should have thought about this ahead of the podcast.
No, wait. Yes, it was.
So your last place losing quarterfinalist, again, same as me, would be G2. You think that they've got a quarterfinal in them?
I think they do have a quarterfinal in them.
Okay.
Managed to do that in Charlotte. Seem like they're on the up and up now.
Yeah. I think what it's fair to say, we might not have worked around the groups perfectly, but I think what it's fair to say here is this isn't necessarily what we think is going to happen position 1 to 8, but what we're doing is saying these teams are capable of doing this. So whilst we might not be right about everything here, like, FaZe, Sonics, G2 can't all go through, but what I'm sort of saying is, and what you're saying there is G2, that's as far as they're going to get, or they're capable of a semi or a final.
Yeah, I mean, they're capable of doing this.
Yeah.
And if we have 3 teams from a group, that just means that the group is very competitive.
The group is going to
right?
be... That's exactly the point there that I was trying to make. It just means we're going to have a very competitive group. And it doesn't surprise me that my group was Group B, because I really do think it is going to be hard fought. So give us some losing semi-finalists.
We're totally not trying to save ourselves here for not thinking it's true, but it's definitely...
This is what happens when you do it on the fly. Give us some losing semi-finalists, Hap. So, 4th place for Hap is going to be Damwon Kia. You think they've got another semi-final in them, but not a final?
I hope they have
More
a final.
heartbreak for
I
Damwon
hope they
Kia.
have a final in them, but it's good to bounce back, at least. Get to the semis, do what not other APAC team has done so far. Get into that semi-final again. Maybe step up after that again. So hoping to see them do higher than this. But
3rd place, then.
realistically speaking,
I
think this is where it ends.
That's the end of the road for Damwon Kia. So 3rd place, your other losing semi-finalists. Who else is capable of a semi-final? We've got Astralis. You see, you've gone very much the same as me there in the thinking with Astralis, I think. They're very good. They can get along the road, but I'm not sure a European final is on the cards for them just yet.
No, maybe not.
They've got to play against the crowd this time.
That's true. And it's a European crowd.
They had a lot of support last time.
European crowd, so it's not just going to be let's go.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Astralis will be very good at playing the villains. If the crowd is against them, I think they will play up to that fantastically well.
But they are an energetic team, and if there's no European team playing against them, you might just see the crowd getting behind Astralis at that point.
I think they could be a fan favourite, you're right, if they're not playing against Europe.
Yeah.
So, finalists up. We just need 2 more from you. 2nd place team. Who's going to be our losing finalist, do you think, Hap? We're going to have some real EU optimism, Hap, going for Wolves.
There's an opportunity.
The Wolves in 2nd place.
There's an opportunity.
They've played very well through EUL.
Yeah, they've played well. They've been only improved ever since Charlotte. I think they're really on the up and up, and I hope that they're going to be able to surprise for EU here.
Well, there's just one more
You can
place.
take a guess. I mean,
there's just one more place to go, happen. There's one team that seems to be wildly missing from this list that's been on everybody else's list. I have them as the runner-up. I have them as the losing finalist. I think FaZe is going to be your winner, along with almost everybody else. Ratalia and Dev Marta as well, of course, earlier going for FaZe. So it is indeed going to be FaZe Clan at the top of the tree, Hap. Do you think they've got a second major in 3 competitions?
I think they have the opportunity, definitely. They came in strong. Of course, they have to travel quite a bit. There is going to be some jet lag, but they've managed to do that.
They're very familiar
Sweden,
with that,
they're familiar with it. They like Europe. Let's see if they can do it again.
I think they're very possible. Honestly, I just desperately want that Dan 1Kia FaZe rematch in the final. It would be absolutely unbelievable. But that is going to do it for us, Hap. Thank you very much for joining us on the Prep Phase podcast, brought to you, of course, by Predator Gaming. We've gone through our list. As we've said, we've not nailed it quite perfectly with the groups. We'll maybe have to do a little bit of adjustment, and we'll chuck them on the timeline as well. We'd love to hear what you think of how the Berlin Major is going to shake down, regardless of what we think. Dev Marta, Ratalia, Nick, thank you all for getting involved. Regardless of what they think, we know one thing for certain, and that the Berlin Major is going to be an unbelievable tournament with some fantastic siege, some of the best we've ever seen. So it's certainly not going to be one to miss. As we said, thank you for stopping in, for checking out the podcast. This is the news section done. This is the siege stuff covered off. We are also in the very near future going to have the second episode of this dropping, which is an interview with Doki of G2. It's a fascinating one, a real insight into the workings of G2 and reaching the major, so make sure to check that out when it comes along as well. I've been Ace of Pyrite, Hap has joined me, and we will hopefully see you next time.